Meet Dave of Delusions of Grandeur, actor, producer, and director of films like Tales of the Forgotten. He has come to assemble a team of freaks, geeks, and even worse, film nerds, to discuss films ranging from mainstream to downright crazy. There is Tammy, car enthusiast, and Dave's fiance, Dustin, reptile expert and overall horror collector, Jake, environmentalist and fine art film critic, and finally Brandon, a therapist with a love of film that can only be seen as insanity. Together under Dave's leadership, they are Inside Movies Galore. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show. To heal.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but today we are continuing a theme that I have put forward. And honestly, a lot of us have movies that we like and enjoy, but there are those of us that have films that we like and enjoy, but we feel foolish liking them. So some of these guys call it guilty pleasures. I call it the film or films that you ought to be ashamed for liking. But in any case, I believe this one was put forward by our good buddy Jake here. Jake, why don't you tell us what movie you subjected us to this week?
So,
and by the way, we were doing it while we were we're waiting around for you.
yes, indeed. And of course, now we're waiting for Brandon. But anyway. So, we'll be looking at a movie written and directed by first-time director Rob McKittrick from 2005, a movie called Waiting. Now, IMDb describes it as young employees at Shenanigans Restaurant collectively stave off boredom and adulthood with their antics. Now, I will go ahead and start this by I'll preface this by saying that Dave knows this. I have said this. I think I said it last week as well. This is not a theme that I was going to ever do 100% on the target. If there was something I was truly ashamed of enjoying, I'm not going to share it on the air, just so you know. But I decided to interpret it as this would be something that if I were still as hung up on the critical opinion and the overall reception to a movie as I have been in the past, then I would think that, I guess as you said, that I ought to be ashamed. Waiting was a movie that was savaged by the critics when it was released. I remember the reviews. They were bad. But most of the people that I know personally who have talked about seeing this movie love it. It's a movie that for a certain demographic, it just hits. And for many other people, it's flawed, but it's got, And as someone who worked for many years in a small restaurant chain in literally every position except for manager, who's also worked as a line cook for a much larger restaurant chain, who worked as a service bartender at a country club and briefly as a bartender for, pardon my French, a shit show operation. I am very well versed in the food service existence. And from my perspective, the critics didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've done the waitress scene, I've done the hostess scene, I've done the line cook. I've done bartending, but not in a restaurant setting.
Yeah.
But so I've done my share of it too.
Well, Tammy, you can go ahead and lead us off then. Was this your first time watching Waiting, and what were your general impressions?
It was my first time, and in some ways it kind of reminded me of Clerks.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if I was right in saying that, but in ways it did,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we ever went to some of the extremes that they did behind the scenes in our restaurant. Was I worked at Big Boys and I worked at Chi-Chi's, which I don't know if those are restaurants that you guys have ever heard of or whatever, but there definitely were some playtimes and everything behind the scenes.
Some shenanigans.
Oh yes, especially at Chi-Chi's. That's where I was the line cook. I was at Chi-Chi's. And it was the funniest thing about watching this, and I was remembering Chi-Chi's, was the sour cream thing.
Oh.
Because Juan did appetizers next to him where I worked. And he'd always get me with the stupid doors, pulling his stuff out. And it, he'd fling open the door. I'm like, oh, man. Yeah, he put sour cream on my ponytail. That's okay. I took a handful of cut up tomatoes and put them down his pants.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so we definitely, especially at Chi-Chi's, we had,
right.
It'd be downtime, the whole,
right.
Down, you know what downtime means.
Right.
The place is full. This is when you're supposed to do some cleaning and some stocking, and everybody kind of like runs for breaks and everything like that. And that's also the time when you goof off too.
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely things I could relate to it. It definitely things that made me laugh, and it did, like I said, it did remind me of Clerks in some ways. So I thought it was fun. I really did. I mean, there was definitely things that I could relate to.
Right.
And there were definitely things that were a little bit extreme.
Yeah. I have to admit, I have no recollection of anything like the game at the places I worked at.
Oh, God. No.
Not even Hooters. That's the kind of restaurant you would think would have something like that. No.
No, none of the places I worked for did anything to that extreme. So.
Or at least if they were playing it, I was not aware.
We played games a little bit on each other, like when Juan got caught stealing cigarettes out of people's jackets.
Yeah.
We put one of these little blunt things in the cigarettes that would pop, like.
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned that.
Yep.
You might have mentioned that in the Clerks discussion.
Yep. We set his butt up real good. And we knew it was him because he got caught, and then he tried to say it wasn't when there was sour cream on the jacket, and he took it
Right.
out of the pocket.
Right.
Plus, it exploded on him. It's like, dude, you're busted.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Does that round it up for you?
Yep. But see,
Uh-huh.
that's how we knew to bust him though, is because he left sour cream on my silk jacket from stealing my cigarettes out of my jacket, and that's how we knew it was him. So
Right.
we knew to set him up.
Right. All
Yeah,
right.
that's it for now.
Okay. How about you, Dave? Is this your first time seeing this movie? And what were
No, I have this film in my collection, and I watched it back when I picked it up. I swear I showed it to her, and she didn't like it at the time. But she also doesn't remember watching it. And I do.
Well, you guys had to show me Clerks and get me all into that, so maybe maybe things have changed, because you guys all get me with that stuff.
Well, in any case, I have after dementing her mind with Clerks.
Yes, I'm sure Clerks and Clerks alone.
I totally forgot about the game and the goat. I totally forgot about that, and I like the dude who kind of like told randomly told him about like the different like things and using food to demonstrate everything.
The headline cook.
Yeah, the headline cook.
I
remember
Luis Guzman.
Yeah, I remember him playing in the Count of Monte Cristo with dude from Person of Interest and
slightly different role.
Slightly different role. Jacopo.
Currently Gomez Adams in Netflix Wednesday.
Yes, which is an interesting,
very different role.
Yeah, definitely a different role. But in any case, I always knew that this was like the first time that anyone ever saw Ryan and his antics.
Van Wilder.
Oh yeah,
that was later.
No,
that was before this.
And Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
Van Wilder was before this?
Oh yeah,
Wilder was before this. Yeah.
Oh shit! Then I guess Van Wilder was when I first saw him.
There were others too. That's the only one I remember the asshole Ryan Reynolds from.
I just didn't remember him being so fat in the face,
Yeah.
For some reason, and he still has his baby fat in this one.
Yeah, well, when he did Deadpool, he had to do like many people. I mean, what was it? Not Chris Cooper.
Also, Blade Trinity came before this, and Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. He had a small role in that. The role
I didn't watch the Harold and Kumar stuff.
Adventureland, you gotta remember it. Oh no, that came after this. Sorry.
Adventureland is the movie that all movies standard is.
Yes.
It's the standard.
Oh, Amityville Horror came out the year this did.
Oh yeah, that remake. Yeah.
But like I said, I first saw him on Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, and that was a few years before this. And he was in Dick. Yeah.
He's done a lot of things.
One episode of the X-Files when he was much younger. Yep.
Much
younger. But yeah, as well as Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the movie, TV movie apparently. But anyway,
I didn't get to see this one like I saw I saw Clerks when I was in high school and shit. So I know it was at least within the last 6 years that I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked it up randomly from Half Price Books, and I think I took it home and we watched it and forgot about it since then.
I'm glad I didn't see Clerks in high school. I wouldn't have gotten it the way I do now.
Yeah. All right.
But anyways, that's where I sit on it.
Okay. Okay. So how about you, Brandon? Is this your first time seeing this, and what were your thoughts on it?
Nope, never seen it before. Matter of fact, this is probably my first ever movie that I've ever watched. I haven't even watched movies before this. This is the first for it.
Oh wow, we got a newbie here. Nice.
Yeah, I got all of my entertainment by watching the grass grow outside prior to this.
He's just been pretending all these years.
Yes. But of course,
you were just born yesterday.
Could you imagine if this was someone's first movie?
Well, if they worked in the industry.
Baby Einstein's first movie?
If this was their first movie, I don't know if they'd want
Get
to
them
watch
while
it.
they're young.
Yep. So this is one of those that did appeal. I mean, it's very Clerks-like. I mean, they even have their own Jay and Silent Bob wannabe characters.
Yeah.
They're nowhere near as entertaining as Jay and Silent Bob, but
I would almost say they are more Jay, and what's his name that Kai McBride plays is almost more Silent Bob.
yeah.
Bishop. Yeah.
But as far as it goes, it was pretty good. I didn't work waiting tables jobs when I worked. I usually, before I started getting into what I do for a living, my jobs were more like, Arby's was the closest thing I worked to this. So fast food, which has some similarities, but not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I worked out of a nursing home, which has zero similarities really to this, except for maybe that one dude that Ryan Reynolds was talking to.
His favorite customer ever?
Yes. So, I do feel like I can understand where it comes from for the most part, because, it's sort of like with Clerks. I never worked out of a convenience store, yet I can still relate. Matter of fact, I would even say that Clerks was even more relatable because the convenience store is not all that different from the fast food, especially since I worked out of a gas station, which was a little of everything there.
And Clerks 2 is fast food.
Yeah, and Clerks 2 is directly where I'm at. If you think that would make that my favorite one because of relatability. But waiting tables I never did. But that doesn't mean I couldn't figure out a way to relate to certain, especially asshole customers, because I think we've all worked with the public, and working with the public can definitely teach you things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also understand how tipping works.
Because just like Spaceballs, we're surrounded by assholes.
Yes, we are. As somebody who's worked over 2 decades in the mental health system, I will still say that the time I worked at Arby's was the time I had the least. I had the most volatile customers, and that's and half of that time was working with cases that the police brought in.
I think
not to Arby's.
I think my most volatile customers was in the bar when I worked at the bar, because this wasn't this is like a your little dive bar type of thing, so it wasn't like no prestige nice place but I did relate to the picture I got for the background for this.
Yes.
Oh, I know this might be the last time we get to do that because our paid streamer runs out on the 16th. So we may be on this thing for it, but I don't know what that unpaid has. I think we can use a background image, but I can't remember. But we'll adapt.
One thing I have to say about waitressing, though, is, not only can the customers sometimes make things difficult, so can the others that you work with. If the food, if the cook makes the food wrong, that's not the waitress's fault. But that doesn't mean it doesn't, that the waitress or waiter doesn't get blamed for it.
The people
know?
shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we had our own employee screw ups. I mean, I know that they had one person who cut themselves up on the slicer, and they laughed about it as they were bleeding all over the counter.
Oh, good times.
And in pure view of a customer, and the customer was berating me over it. It's like, I'm not the one who was an idiot back there.
Yeah.
Laughing hysterically at bleeding out. Then there was the guy who decided that he dropped something in the fryer, so he just pick it up right out of the fryer, barehanded. Because nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing at all.
Hey, at Popeyes, we made our potatoes with the tea water from the coffee machine and back because we had no real way to heat up water.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. All these things, and of course, management also. I mean, incompetent managers do that.
Yeah.
At Arby's, we ran out of Arby's sauce. We ran out of chicken fingers every week. Chicken tenders every week, and we ran out of roast beef at least once a month.
Yeah.
And definitely those of us on the front line had to deal with people upset. It's like, how can you do Arby's and not have roast beef? Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we used to joke. We used to joke at McAdoo's that if we ran out of ranch dressing, sweet tea, or Natty Light, Salem would implode on itself. There was just, people would not, and there were a couple of times where we ran out of tea, and it was rough.
But
well,
as far as
our cook was usually at Big Boys. A lot of times, the one cook that we had was drunk.
Yeah.
So we had to deal with that. I mean, the one night he sends out eggs and we're all running, and that's not what the people asked for. And the ham that was with them was like not even cooked up yet. And it was just like, I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, I could come back there and make it if you can't.
See, my the chef at the country club I was at was a little more professional. He would be pretty much sober while he was cooking. As soon as they closed that kitchen down, he'd come to my bar and he wanted a pitcher of beer. I was like, as soon as he could. But
well, this idiot lost the keys for the store more than once, and it was
well.
terrible.
All right.
Well, to finish up my first impression, as I was trying to get to before we got off of the track, just real quick.
Go for it.
The reason why I chose this background picture is I was that kid. I wasn't quite in tears, but I did not like loud noises or like crowded areas that are loud. So whenever they would do the birthday thing, I dreaded them dreaded them doing this.
Right.
And thank goodness they didn't take pictures like that. I would probably look just like that kid in there, like,
yeah. That kid was not happy.
So I was like, well, that brought me back. But as far as things go, I thought this was well done. I don't. Yes, it is not as artsy as Clerks.
Oh.
And there were other ones that were. I mean, and it's not quite as trendy as indie feeling as Empire Records. This feels more mainstream than those types of films.
We still need to do Empire Records.
But I would like to think that if we're looking at the Clerk style, this one reminded me of kind of a step in between the two. Okay. Because Empire Records was a little bit more edgy, a little bit more mainstream in some ways, whereas Clerks was far more artsy in other ways. This one is neither artsy nor mild. It's kind of edgy and mainstream. So, and that's my thoughts.
Okay. Now, for me, this is not my first time seeing the movie. I remember, I don't remember if I was waiting for it when it came out or if I heard about it. Again, I very distinctly remember reading the reviews because this came out during my film critic phase where I was reading reviews all the time. And if a movie caught my interest, I would read a lot of reviews. Most movies I would read, like James Bartonelli, Roger Ebert, a couple others. But this one, I remember reading a bunch of reviews. And I remember distinctly how much they hated it. And one of the reasons I remember this so distinctly is how many of them said how unrealistic it was. And again, I watched this movie and I call bullshit on that. But anyway, so I saw this way back when. I cannot swear to it how many times I've seen it over the years. This was probably not more than my fourth or fifth viewing, but I know I've seen it at least 3 times before. I know that one of my brothers, this is like one of his favorite movies, and the other one enjoys it. And actually, when we coordinated, we ended up watching it together this time. The movie definitely does have a Clerks vibe to it. It also has elements of other Empire Records. Yeah, it has elements of that. It has, of course, the Clerks 2 comes into it because of the food service bent. And there's an anime I really love called Working that or Wagnaria that takes place in this type of restaurant. And that's a little more wacky anime antics, but it also had a lot of vibe that I really got. Also, workplace comedies like Office Space, for example. This has a little bit of an Office Space vibe or something like that. It is much ruder, crasser, and more vulgar than any of the above, even arguably Clerks 2. And if there's any reason why I would consider it a guilty pleasure or something I'm ashamed to enjoy, if that was the case, it would be due to A, how crass some of the humor was even at the time, and B, certain elements that have not aged well, or that I've grown out of. Like they may have hit perfectly at the time, and now I look it back and go, yeah, maybe that wasn't so funny. You know what I mean? Like,
well, actually, out of curiosity, since you were in your kind of movie critic phase at the time,
yeah.
Well, would you have considered at the time when you originally watched this film, as one of those, I really like this film, but I shouldn't like this film?
This was one thing I did think about when I picked the movie. And again, it was one that I picked because the critics said I should hate it. The audiences said I should love it, and I've never been fully enthralled to the critics. I do pay attention to what general, especially if it's someone I know. And again, a lot of people I knew raved about this movie and said how much they loved it. That can have some weight. But yes, I probably felt a little bit icky enjoying this one just because from a art standpoint, there are ways in which it's not that great. Now, that being said, and I've got to be honest here, I do think this is a better constructed, better acted movie than Clerks 2. I honestly do. I don't think it's better than the other Clerks movies, not by a far sight. But in terms of the excesses, mostly in terms of the acting. The acting here, for the most part, is spot on. I don't think there's necessarily a weak link, except that maybe a couple people lean a little too hard. Some of the characters are one-dimensional, Alana Ubach plays Naomi, and she is the raving bitch. She is basically the character that is, I think Monty, Ryan Reynolds' character, I believe he did say at one point that she'd been waiting tables way too long. And I knew people like this, but just the way she has that permanent scowl on her face is a little bit overacting. You know, there were a couple where, and yeah, T-Dog and Nick, they were unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
I always
again,
wondered how they kept their jobs as busboys. There's an endless line of busboys willing to take a job.
I've seen boys do some stupid shit and keep their jobs. Stupid stuff. Like I hesitate to say this. I'm not going to say the name of the restaurant right away, but although it wasn't McAdoo's, so that narrows it down. There was one where I literally saw someone, I can't remember if it was a busboy or a cook, put raw oysters on the outgoing part of the dishwasher where things were supposed to be clean. Freaking put raw shellfish. I'm like, oh my God. And also at that place, I caught something that nobody else had. Nobody was rotating stock properly. And there was one day where we threw away, I think it was well over a dozen boxes of wings.
Oh, I know.
All well packed. What?
I know a restaurant that is.
Yeah. So there were some horror shows that happened. Again, nothing that bad at the Dews, but there were a couple there. Yeah.
I'm surprised that one review that you said that they said that it wasn't realistic or whatever. You know, it's
there were a lot of them. Yeah.
It's like, have you ever worked in that industry before?
And actually, apparently Rob McKittrick did work in a restaurant, and this was drawn from his experience to a degree.
It's like there was a lot of things that were very realistic.
Right. So basically, that's a little bit there. I've always liked the movie. I do like it. Still, there are reasons why I give this a very qualified recommendation to people. I let them know straight up that it is loaded with sexual innuendos. It is loaded with crass and foul language. It has some things that are going to be squicky for people in other ways. There are, I had honestly forgotten how much the plot line of hitting on the underage hostess was central to the plot. I had totally forgotten about that. But again, this is drawn from real experience. I worked with this hostess. She even looked like Natasha. And she was a complete tease, especially to the middle-aged cook, right up until she turned 18, and then that was it. So I have definitely seen this in action. And Brandon mentioned before, I think Brandon mentioned the absolutely incompetent and desperately wants to be cool boss. I think we can all relate to that.
Yep.
And
why haven't we ever hung out before?
exactly.
Well, I'll tell you exactly why. You're not in my class.
And I can tell you, there is a reason why the only position I did not work at McAdoo's was management. I can tell you firsthand that management and food service sucks. The benefits do not. Now, when he's trying to get Dean to take the assistant manager position, the things he mentions, I'm like, wow, what restaurant are you working at? Because I think those were better benefits than most restaurant assistant managers would be offered, but still, yeah.
Yeah, those are good benefits. Dental,
Yeah.
week vacation, 2 weeks vacation.
Yeah, that's
That's
almost yeah. So
I don't
this
know any that offer that.
right. Yeah. Especially an assistant manager is likely to be a part-time position. I mean, well, I guess it depends on the restaurant, but still.
Maybe back in those days, like when they're
This was
looking
when I was working in a restaurant, but
I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, at any rate, so yeah, the idea that this is unrealistic, except for a few specific things, like offering the managers that much money, or again, the game arguably is a little bit unrealistic. Arguably, there were sexual shenanigans at some of the places I've worked at, and I have seen things behind the line that would not be PG rated. Let's put it that way. So yeah, it's something. And even the part where Louis Guzman is trying to get someone, and he's sitting there waiting for minutes and minutes and minutes, and I'm sitting here going, "You gotta be careful, buddy. You're gonna get stuck like that." As soon as he stops, someone opens the door, and I can relate to that in a very different sense, because when you're at work and if you want something to happen, it's not going to happen while you're waiting for it. It's when you go on to something else that it happens, That's true of any business.
True.
But anyway, so I guess we'll go ahead and launch into it. I did want to say one more thing, just kind of out of the gate. I meant to say this at the top of it. It's kind of ironic that when Dave put this suggestion to us, I literally blanked. I could not think of anything. It took me a minute to come up with this movie. And so far this month, I have watched not one, but 2 movies that could have qualified for this thing. I finally watched Street Fighter. Finally saw Raul Julia's swan song as M. Bison, and Ming-Na Wen's nearly career-killing start as Chun-Li, and all that stuff. I finally saw that movie. And I finally saw the first full-on collaboration between Sam Raimi and the brothers Coen, Crime Wave. Both movies are awful. Objectively awful. And they're both really fun. So it's kind of interesting that I ended up getting to both of those this month. But anyway, and I'm going to go ahead and launch into it then. We have this movie. And by the way, Shenanigans is a great name for a restaurant, especially this restaurant, but it is a great name for a restaurant. And I believe this was actually filmed at a converted Bennigan's, I think was what I'd read. Yeah, it was actually a Bennigan's, but then they've eventually renovated it. Now it's a Verizon wireless store. Sad. That's kind of sad. But anyway, so I haven't been in very many Bennigan's over the years, but I'm familiar with the concept, and I could see. One could also think of this as being on par with, say, Applebee's or TGI Fridays, Ruby Tuesday, something like that, I don't know that any of them would have quite such a wild and wacky staff, but, I'm sure they do. It's actually, was it Kim that worked at Fridays? Or who? I feel like I know someone that does. Can't remember. Did, I should say. I don't know. Anyway, so movie basically takes place over one day. a day in the life kind of movie, you know, much like Clerks, actually. It's very similar in that respect. And it happens to be the day where a few things are starting, ending, what have you. It's the first day of work for young Mitch, who's played by John Francis Daly, who really, the only other thing I really know him from was Freaks and Geeks. I'm sure I've seen a couple other things, but it's kind of interesting. Oh, right. He was in... he's credited as special creature voice in Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And come to think of it, I think he co-wrote that movie, which was a great movie. I love that one. But he plays Mitch. And like I said, this is probably his biggest movie role I've ever seen. And he is a newbie who's trying to learn the ropes. Our incredibly uncool manager, Dan, who's played by David Ketchner. And if there's anyone who can play smarmy middle management with a wholly unearned sense of superiority, it's David Ketchner. I don't know very many people could do a better job of that. But he puts Mitch in the tender care of Monty, who's played by Ryan Reynolds. In typical Ryan Reynolds fashion, he is a complete smartass. He kind of a veteran server who does know the ropes, but also, and he's not bad at his job, but he really doesn't give a shit. And he spends most of the movie in a lengthy, ping-ponging back and forth between corrupting young Mitch, hitting on the underage hostess Natasha, played by Vanessa Lingis, and conferring, commiserating, what have you, with his best friend and coworker Dean, who's played by Justin Long. And that's the other major plot thrust of the movie, is that Dean starts the movie with his mother guilting him about still being a waiter in a restaurant when, oh, you remember Chet? Didn't you go to school together? He just graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, you know. And yeah, so he starts the day off on the wrong foot and ends up with an absolutely horrid customer who's basically stiffs him, and more on that when we'll get to it. And then Dan offers him a job being assistant manager, so he has to spend half the movie weighing his options there. We're also introduced to his kind of sort of girlfriend, Amy, played by Caitlin Doubleday. Serena, another waitress, played by Anna Faris. The lead cook, Radimus, played by Luis Guzman. The dish dude, Bishop, who's played by Kyle McBride, and who basically is sort of like a kind of a mashup of Silent Bob, the dude, and we'll throw Keanu Reeves into the mix. It's just this real chill guy that doles out advice. It's like
there's a word for that type of character, but I'm not going to say it on this live.
Okay. We also mentioned T-Dog and Nick, the bus boys, Max Cash and Andy Milonakis. A couple of stoners who I can't even say they're terrible at their jobs, because I'm not even convinced they do their jobs. Naomi, again, Alana Ubach plays a completely burnt out waitress. Rob Benedict plays Calvin, a completely pussy whipped guy who is working a double because he thinks he has a shot at a fellow server that Yeah, he doesn't. And then you got Dane Cook, who, from what I understand, is not exactly in people's good graces right now. But he's always played an asshole. And here he plays the asshole cook, Floyd. What's up?
I said,
Got,
yeah.
got Emmanuel Chiriqui as Tyla, the very cute lesbian bartender. Wendy Malick has a cameo as Monty's mom, and let's just say that was a weird family dynamic. And etc. You got a pretty good cast. Some of those people I've never heard of before, but most of them I've seen in other, often better things. Sounds good.
The guy who played a guy who was a little penis shy.
Yeah.
He played God on Supernatural.
Well, I still have never seen that show. He also was in Lucifer, and he's been in a few things. But yeah, he has that whole shy bladder thing going on, which that gets kind of interesting as we go. But anyway, I had an episode of Psych. Yeah, that's always fun. And an episode of House. Yeah. So, like I said, it kind of starts with, just kind of starting the day, getting ready. We see, like I said, Mitch come in, Monty starts giving him the ropes, that kind of thing. And of course, Monty almost right away, I think he's like, now you got to ask yourself one very important question. What are my thoughts on full frontal nudity? It's like, so one thing we should say about Monty, he is a walking HR nightmare. He would be brought up to HR on so many charges so often. And this would have happened in 2005, let alone now. Now, oh yeah, he wouldn't keep his job long.
Can you say statutory rape?
Yeah. But even just asking a brand new recruit his thoughts on that's like, but anyway, he ends up giving Mitch the 5-cent tour and then handing him off to Radimus to, quote, explain the finer points of the game. I'm not sure if that was actually a quote, but it's pretty close. Which Radimus does with great relish. And meanwhile, we see that, Dean having lunch with his mother and all that kind of stuff and shows up to work and, well, actually, first he wakes up with Amy, and it's pretty clear from the word go that they're in, let's just say, kind of a weird relationship.
Well, see, the way that it does, when they wake up, it really does speak to it. Just essentially,
yeah.
He didn't, as he says, I didn't realize you were there.
Yeah.
And her reaction is very telling, is basically, yeah, I know. Yeah. And that's the whole of the problem in the relationship, is that she doesn't feel like she's there.
Right. So again, this is a little bit of a Clerks kind of vibe to this, is that in a lot of ways, Dean is our Dante and Monty is our Randall in a lot of ways. Not in every way. I would argue that Monty is more charming and less of an asshole than Randall is. And Dean is not quite as whiny as Dante is. But he still has that whole shit or get off the pot dilemma that Dante has. And it's that way with Amy, and it's that way with his job.
Even with the college thing, if you think about it, he dropped out of not undergrad, really. Not even that, community college.
Right. Well, he's taken a couple classes, Yeah, he's half-assed in community college. So so that's kind of that. And so, like I said, most of the early part is just them kind of getting there. And then we get into the first round of customers that we see, and each one gets their own little thing. And this was one of the ones where there was an actor who clearly was really overacting, but they were making a point and they made it well. And that's the one where Amy gets this, what looks like a group of professional women who are on their lunch break. And the one woman is
a complete bitch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I don't think
actually,
there's a better way to place that.
what's that?
So there's no better way to say that. I think Dave hits that right on the head.
I believe they ended up they had their own way of saying it, which I believe was she gets desperate and goes to Monty to take over, and he does take over, and she's very unpleasant to him too, but he just smiles and says, "I'll fix that right away for you." And he is super kind and professional, and as soon as he gets back to the line, he's like, "We've got our first biatch of the day." And that's where we see what I think he's the one that says, she forgot the cardinal rule. Don't fuck with the people that make your food.
Damn straight.
And it is true. It is true. They may take it further in this movie, but I think most people know that if you are bad to the people behind the line, or if you're bad to the people who are bringing you your food, you are
entirely responsible for the consequences.
You are putting your fate in their hands. And let's just say this.
Kim has had the story from the Starbucks that goes around the same way as, say, the chocolate pretzel from Mallrats. So it can get that way depending on how bad they are.
Yeah. But yeah, so and then of course, one thing I always remembered about this movie, there are a few moments that I remember, and one of them was the where they drop a steak on the floor, and then Rodimus is like 5-second rule, 5-second rule, and then Floyd picks it up and puts it on the plate, and one of them I think was just like, little floor spice makes everything nice, and then Floyd turns to Rodimus and he's like, that was close. We almost had to go to the 10-second rule. It's like,
Yeah, I don't think we ever see a Big Boys. The customers could kind of like see the cook, the way it was set up. Now at Chi-Chi's you couldn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, we never at either restaurant we never went to these extremes, But
I don't think I ever witnessed anything this extreme either.
A friend of mine who worked at Wendy's back when I was a teen, he actually would tell a lot of stories about what they would do in the back there, and it made me never want to eat at that Wendy's ever.
Right.
They would play, like, when it was slow, they would take one of the burger patties, they would freeze it intentionally, and then they would play hockey with it on the floor.
Right.
And that was they would get really, really high and then hand out things like, people would get burgers with no meat on them, just the bun and all the rest of the condiments with no meat. They would get they'd get their orders wrong like constantly.
And people wonder why I don't do fast food.
Now at Arby's, when I was working, you could see just like Tammy said, you could see the kitchen.
Yeah.
So and the fryer was literally right up next to the registers, which we did traumatize some. Which one of my coworkers did traumatize the customers by sticking his hand in the fryer in front of them. So, so it was hard to do that with their food necessarily.
Right.
But we could mess with the roasts if we wanted to, because they had these roasters where they actually did the roast beefs. They came in like actual roast beefs, and you put them on in the morning, and you roasted them for X number of hours for them to cook all the way through.
Mhm.
And then you would serve them. So the roast beef back in those days was literally fresh roast beef that they roasted in roasters there. Now those were out of sight. So
Mhm.
if you wanted to screw with somebody's food, you could do it there.
So the next part that I got to mention in this part again, there are certain parts of this movie that have always stuck with me, and this was one that, yes, maybe the actor was overacting just a little bit, but I absolutely have encountered this person probably many times or some variation thereof. And the way the whole thing played out, I fully felt Dean's pain. But I love the beginning, and I admit I probably would have had to stifle a chuckle, But there's the part where he comes to a table, and there's this straight up redneck. There are no two ways about it. Straight up redneck. You hardly even see the woman with him. I think they show her briefly and don't bother after that, really. He's like, yeah, I'll have a shot of whiskey and a double shot of whiskey. She'll have a water. Ah, hell, it's our anniversary. Why don't you bring her a Pepsi? it's like, okay, that's really, really, really sad. This guy, but sadly, I've seen a lot of couples that where the guy was just as much of a shit. But then he treats Dean just as poorly. I think the bill ended up being what, like $63 or something, and he basically left $1 in change for a tip. And as someone who's waited tables, I can say that is a freaking insult. And I don't think I ever would have done what Dean did, which is chase him down and say, you obviously need this more than me, but God, I've wanted to a couple of times.
You know it's gone through your head. You know it's gone through your head at times.
Yes. It's like, it was more than $1. I'll give him that. But
it was $1.93, I believe, is the total.
But like, that is decidedly less than 20%. I mean, hell, that's not even close to 10% there. That's not even close to, and if you can't even do 10%, you're automatically screwing with it, But also, I don't care how big or small the bill is. I don't care if the only thing you ordered was a soda. If you can't leave $1, then you're a freaking asshole. And if you've got a bill that big and you barely leave more than $1, that's just not right. So
I totally agree. I've been that waitress myself.
Yeah.
When you get stiffed,
yeah,
you just want to like strangle the person.
I'd almost rather be straight up stiffed than given such an insulting tip. And I think Dean was probably feeling the same way. So he goes right down to the door, puts the money back in his hand and says, you obviously need this more than me. And of course the guy gets pissed and he's like, I want to speak to your manager. And he brings Dan out and Dan's all apologetic. And he's like, yeah, I want what did he say? Like, he's like, I want a gift certificate and a keychain and a hat.
And he wanted some Sundays. Yeah.
I just love that he asked for a keychain.
He's going to send him something in the mail. And he's like, you're going to send Sundays in the mail?
Right. Yep. And of course, he gets a call back later in the movie, but it's
actually that whole interaction gets a call back later in the movie.
Yeah.
That whole you need it more than I do.
Yeah.
Comes back.
There's a couple of callbacks. Yeah. There's a couple. That's one of the reasons I like the scene so much, because it's not a one-off. They pull it back in a couple of meaningful ways, But I just, again, that whole, oh, and hell, get her a Pepsi. I'm just like, that line always stuck in my brain, and I'm like, what a freaking
Two steaks, well done.
yeah, and it was yeah. So that gives us like the early day, and then it kind of, I guess, levels off after that. We have a lot of talking between the people. Poor Mitch is back in the storeroom watching a stupid video. That's like really lame training video, At one point, Radimus comes in. This was the part I referred to earlier. Radimus comes in and takes the position right before the door. Mitch looks at him like, what the hell are you doing? And then Radimus is standing there in what had to be an ungodly, painful position for several minutes. And finally, he gets fed up. And he gets up, and immediately, as he's straightening up, Calvin opens the door.
What's funny is that when I first saw this movie,
yeah.
I didn't think that the game was real at first.
Yeah.
I thought it was just something that Ryan Reynolds' character had made up in order to screw with the new hire.
Right.
So by the time it finally got to this area, I was like, okay, they're not punking this motherfucker at all. They literally are doing this shit. And I was just
right.
Like, that's fucked up right there. This was back when I originally watched it, which was around the time it came out. So, well, if I was thinking that was fucked up then, I mean, damn, it's even more nowadays.
And we haven't really described what the game is, but watch the movie, you'll find out.
I think the full frontal male nudity was the best indicator of what the game is about, if you want to know.
Yes. So, and speaking of Calvin, I think Dave alluded to this earlier. Poor Calvin has had a traumatic experience that has left him unable to micturate in a public forum.
Someone looked at his penis while he was peeing one day, and he could never pee in a public restroom ever again.
It's gotten so bad he's actually hearing voices. It's like, although if I remember correctly, was it T-Dog and Nick that actually were doing that to him later? Like someone actually was talking and making. Oh, no. Okay, that's what it was. He goes in not realizing that Radimus and Danielle, I think was his girlfriend, which also, this is also a thing where you get the wholly unattractive person who somehow has the really hot girlfriend that he treats like crap. And that was absolutely the case with this one. So they're in the bathroom stall getting it on. Calvin comes in not knowing that. And then T-Dog and Nick came in with a camera. And so he's hearing all these voices. He's actually hearing voices. He doesn't know what's going on.
I love it how the picture, Ronimus is actually giving the thumbs up to the picture. It was his girlfriend that beat him up for doing that.
He's just like, yeah. Hell yeah. But anyway, so I jumped ahead a little bit on that. But anyway, honestly, with the movie, if you jump around a little bit, I doubt it's going to.
There were a lot of things that were just touched on but not fleshed out.
Right.
Like they touched on the relationship between the two, but it never really went anywhere.
Yeah.
They touched on the lesbian character, but it never really went anywhere.
Yeah. She did get one little quip.
She got one little snippet where she was hitting on the one person who broke up with her husband and was going to swear off all men. It's like, ooh, okay.
Well, there was the like when Mitch is introduced to her by Monty, and he says something to the effect of, "This is." I think he says something to the effect of, every time I talk to you, I wish I was a lesbian or something. And she says something back to the effect of, well, and every time I talk to you, it's a coincidence. Every time I talk to you, I'm glad I'm Something
Yeah,
like
I think that's what she said back.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was that. And I should say, one of the things that has not aged well with this movie, I have a feeling that it probably doesn't play well with the LGBTQ community, given some of the language and representations.
Actually, I would say it would depend on the age of the LGBTQ.
That's probably true.
Because again, it's more of a cultural thing, and we've advanced culturally beyond it. But back in those days, the way that they did that, and that was the part of the game, really, more than anything else, where they would basically, at the end of it, they would kick in, they'd call them gay.
Yeah.
Which, and the funny part of the game was, well, y'all are doing something that would seem like a gay activity, and then calling each other gay for it.
The girls call them out on it later.
But yeah, I think that anybody who was around at that time would be able to understand it as a time capsule. Now, do I think that anybody who was born like way later, like young Gen Z, would look at that and go, "Oh yeah, I understand." No, they'd look as like, this is insulting. Why are they doing these evil things?
Right.
But well, unless you're, well, then again, then young Gen Z is going far to the right, so maybe not on that end. They're going back to that. So
I guess anyone who was born when this movie came out would be, I guess, 21 now. So they're definitely very young, but it's I think you're right. Someone who's a child of the 80s or 90s would fully get it and probably not be too wigged out, but so a little later than that might be a little different.
They'd be explaining to like, no, that's just how they talked back then.
Right. And again, having worked in a restaurant, I was working in a restaurant when this movie came out. I had my other restaurant job the year after this movie came out. Overall, my food service was from the year before this to about 7 years later, so 6 years later ish. I'm losing track of time, but you get the idea. Again, this is pretty accurate to the time in terms of the way people behaved. And then I don't know if there's anything else y'all want to necessarily hit before we get to the big dinner rush, but the big dinner rush, they could have actually gone harder on it because it could have been a lot more chaotic than what was shown here, but it was pretty chaotic.
That made me feel like bad. It gave me bad memories of when we had dinner rushes.
Yeah. It was when you get a rush in a restaurant, you get a rush. It can be pretty crazy. And so we do get to see a little bit of that, like, the whole everyone's and they survive. And it really is, for anyone that's worked in this job, it feels like you survived when it's over.
Yeah, true.
And then and meanwhile, we get a number of different, interactions going on here and there. And again, if anyone thinks of anything particular they want to bring up, feel free. I didn't really earmark that much. But we do see one thing that is happening during this time period. I think it was during this time period that it really started happening is actually, I think it was shortly before the dinner rush that Dan gave the job offer to Dean, wasn't it? Or it was like earlier. It was
before the dinner rush where the thing, because he was offered the job before the interaction with the redneck guy.
Oh, okay. So it was like earlier.
Because one of the things that happened right afterwards is he gets him in there. It's like, really, you timed this exactly when I was offering you a promotion? And
yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, that was that.
And this dude is that the manager. He has a very pathetic life.
Yeah,
you can tell he wants to be a part of it, The only thing that he has that he can enjoy is the fact that he has some power, and apparently a job in the restaurant chain that apparently gives a lot better pay and benefits than most places do to their management, because he was stepping up, but he also had a stable full-time job with benefits. That's crazy. Yeah. That's an assistant manager too.
Right. Well, and again, this is someone that I've worked with this manager. Basically, I've worked with much better managers. I've worked with worse managers. Dan is, from what I can tell, not the worst manager in the world, but he's not that great. But yeah, the whole idea of, we should hang out or whatever. Like, again, I've worked with a couple managers like that. I've worked with a couple managers who were really cool that I really enjoyed hanging out with. When I was at the Dues, there were a few people I had social interactions with that were in management, and there were a couple that I didn't. That it kind of runs the gamut. I've had jobs in other, positions where, again, it kind of runs the gamut. And he's trying really hard. Like, and yes, Dean is very competent. He is good at what he does. He's not brilliant. He's not, but he's smart. He's not, And again, there too, I've worked with people who were dumber than a bag of rocks in a restaurant setting. I have worked with people that there was one girl that rubbed me the wrong way because she really was dumber than a bag of rocks. But I've worked with people who are really, 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 really intelligent. And, it's all types in that setting, and that's one of the things I enjoyed about it when I was there, but it's also something that can be a little, frustrating, and something What's that?
I know what you mean. We had when I worked at Big Boys, our bus boy, we had a bus boy, and then we had a guy that basically did the dishes, right?
Yeah.
And the one that did the dishes was supposed to stay in the back and do the dishes. He was a little slow. Okay. So they didn't want him out on the floor. They wanted somebody else to go do the busing and bring the dishes to him. They didn't want him out on the floor because I think they didn't want him to feel like people were looking at him or watching him or whatever. I think that's the reason they did it.
Right.
Was, to try and protect him. Well, we had a waitress that went back there and yelled at him to go out there and bust her table, and he was trying to tell her, and he's slow, and he was stuttering and whatever, trying to tell her that he's not supposed to go out there,
Right.
And she got him all upset, and then it's like the rest of us went over and told her, you don't do that, and we had to calm him down, and that's where it's like you get all kinds of things, and it's some people were, I thought it was nice that they gave him a job even though he was slow.
Yeah.
But it wasn't right for others to take advantage of him like that either,
Right.
And
also, did she have time to do it herself? Because that was the thing for me. I was actually, one of my peeves was if you had someone who had time to bust their own tables, they should do it. That's
I don't remember. I think she probably had time that day, but she was one of them like goody girls,
Yeah.
So she thought that was, I think, beneath her.
Yeah.
Now, of course, bust her own table.
Now, of course, here it's the opposite because the guy doing the dishes is the guy that's like the sage-like font of wisdom. And I will say this. Did anyone else feel like they would go crazy having to work in such a claustrophobic space? Because I would. That guy. I'm like, I told my brother, I'm like, how is this guy so chill and zen like if he's stuck in such a tiny space? You know?
Actually, when I think about this, it reminds me of one other thing that really doesn't quite age. Actually, to tell you the truth, even when this came out, it was a little bit off.
Yeah.
And that was the smoking. Yes, there were restaurants with smoking sections still in 2005, but most of them were on their way out. Now, if this had taken place in 1995, or even better, 1985, I could see people smoking all over the freaking place at that point.
The dudes still had smoking at the bar, I think right up until I was done there. And I think they had a smoking section in the restaurant, I want to say until 06, 07, something like that.
Well, eventually Virginia passed a law that made it illegal.
Yeah. Now, I remember this was crazy. We had an employee workday one where we were cleaning. And I remember running the rags over the pictures that were hanging on the wall at the smoking section, and they came away bright red because of how much tobacco gum was on these pictures. It was crazy.
Because in that restaurant, like, everybody was smoking.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that I always hated doing was taking the tagging off of the bathroom accessory areas, because people would like tag graffiti all over the place, and I'd have to actually like take glass cleaner and clean it. And that shit's not easy to clean off, especially when you have to do it daily.
I guess
I don't remember. I don't think there were smoking sections. Let's see. When you figure, when I was waitressing, this was like 88, 89.
Oh yeah.
You know. So I was in the restaurant business probably from like 88 to like early 90s or whatever. So.
I mean, we used to have one that was in Covington back when I was growing up. It was called D&J's, which has been closed. Had some of the best fried chicken in the area. The problem was there was no non-smoking section, it was just smoking. And you would go in there and it would be a cloud of cigarette smoke and ash. You would come out smelling of cigarettes. And the food would also smell like cigarettes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so those were the days. Like, maybe I know like you and Tammy smoke fairly regularly, so that might not have been an issue for y'all if y'all went in, but for somebody who didn't smoke and had a lot of asthma stuff, that was not a thing. So yeah, I looked at that and I was like, boy, any Gen Z person looking at this film would be like, why are they smoking in there? It's not allowed.
Well, I mean, that's like any movie from the 50s or 60s is going to be the same way. It's like
56. Like, why is he drinking a bottle of gin while driving a car? Well, they do that all the time.
Right. Now, I just saw something really sad. I just realized our cute bartender in this movie apparently was in Wrong Turn.
Yeah.
For her.
Another good movie.
Oh, God, no.
Hey, those were awesome.
They were hit or miss for me, but that first one was pretty damn good. I did like the first one.
Yeah.
And the remake. The remake was also really good.
So, the other thing I was going to say, I think we ended up getting a little twisted around and sidetracked, as happens. I think we did see the actually, wait a minute. This might have been the part where they had the little floor spice makes everything nice. I think that was in the dinner rush. The whole, I think so. But we saw we didn't really describe what they did to that one woman's meal, but it was interesting.
We don't need to.
We don't need to. You can use your imagination.
I think the line. The Ryan Reynolds line is enough. You know.
Yeah. So the other thing that again, Monty has been hitting on Natasha the whole movie, but Dan decides to start hitting on her, and she's giving it right back. You know, that's again, I knew this person. She's giving it right back, and it's like, you know, I never seem to know where you guys get together. You know, what do you think you happen to know? You know, trying to fishing for an invite, and she, without missing a beat, she's like, you know, I'll look into it. You know, and later on, she sets him up good.
Yeah.
She gives him a dress. We'll get, you know, at the post-credit scene, we see how that turns out. But or the actually over-credit scene.
Well, just as a aside, because we didn't really cover it for Monty, even though I did use the word statutory rape for that, is basically, which they use in this movie too.
Yeah.
One of the things he's looking at, and he apparently has a propensity to pick up on high school girls.
Yeah.
And one of the things he wants as another conquest is, of course, the greeter, and she is 17, about to turn 18. Yeah. And part of his goal is, well, I need to sleep with her before she turns 18.
She's 1 week away, I believe.
So yeah.
And to his minor credit, his goal shifts as the movie goes.
He sort of grows as a character a little bit, but not a
little bit. But there is that one table of 4, and actually, when she brings him the table, she's like, "You'll like this one," and it's like 4 girls who are a little younger than her. And when he starts turning on the charm, they all scramble to light cigarettes to kind of, I guess, make themselves look older or whatever. And it's like, you were talking about everyone smoking.
Those childproof lighters. There.
Oh, yeah. And then, you know, his sister, and he's like, I thought you guys were maybe 19, 20, 21, or, you know.
Now, okay. Now, I've been talking about, and I actually, the one I keep talking about, she was a good person. I didn't mind her at all. But there was one hostess. Oh, my God. This one was even younger. She was a lot younger than this girl. She had no concept of the illegality of her actions. And there was one time that she was sitting in a booth with customers and tried to get the bar to serve her apple juice in a mug so it could look like she was drinking beer. And it's like, do you have any concept of how many people in this restaurant you are screwing over with these shenanigans? She had no idea. So it's like, that one bugged me. That was like, it's the bartender was pissed off at her too for good reason. But you know, it was and I even remember which bartender that was. And
trust me, whenever I go down to Summerfest with one of my buddies, there were a ton of itty bitties who would get drinks from older guys around me, and they should have never had a beer.
I also worked with a server who was not that bright, and he one time was working, and he was busy, and he asked a friend of his who didn't even work for us, who was underage, to run beer to his table. Suffice it to say, he was fired shortly after that. That's not something you do. I don't know, Dave and Tammy, I don't know how the rules work where you are, but in Virginia, if you're under 21 in a restaurant, you don't touch alcohol.
No, you don't. I mean,
you don't. A server
I didn't-
can't even run it. Yeah.
Big Boys did not serve alcohol. Chi-Chi's did.
Yeah.
And I remember, even though I wasn't out on the floor because I was cooking,
Yeah.
I remember them that the every once in a while one of the waitresses would come back by us and we're like, well, what are you doing back here? She goes, well, I can't run this out to the table.
Yeah.
Because they ordered drinks.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So that was one of the reasons why that one wanting to sit looking like she was drinking beer was just incredibly stupid. But I couldn't believe that one guy had his friend run beer. Like, you dingus.
You know, actually, now that I think of it, if you were 18, even though the drink age is 21, I think if you were 18, you could run it out. But if you were under 18, you couldn't.
You can't do that in Virginia.
You had to be at least 18 to use the slicer at Arby's, which would sometimes frequently require me to get off of the front, go back and slice things and go back. But the sad thing is the person that injured themselves on the slicer was older than me at the time.
Yeah,
I think there was a clause that if you were 18, you could serve it. And our stuff here.
Yeah, Virginia has some really strict laws when it comes to alcohol, and I don't know how much it's changed was there. What's that?
We had a lot of blue laws in the state, which, and by blue laws, I don't mean left-leaning laws. I mean very strict religious laws in the state, and we've been slowly relaxing those over the years.
Well, to a degree, some areas are going in the other direction. It's really, it's weird. Virginia is weird when it comes to that. But anyway, so that's potentially a whole other digression. But anyway,
so we go through the dinner rush.
Right. And I believe it's during the dinner rush that we have that bathroom encounter that I already mentioned.
Because we have the bathroom encounter, we have the whole thing where he's gone back and was holding the pose because the entirety of the video was basically Monty puts him back there, says, okay, this is going to be the dinner rush. You're going to start it. By the time I get back, by the time dinner rush is over, I'll come back and the video should be done.
Yeah.
And which, tell you the truth, I'd be much happier being back there watching that stupid video.
Yeah.
Because back at that time, you wouldn't get the tips, but you would also get the full pay for that time because you're not on the floor making tips at that time.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if it's the same for most restaurants or all restaurants. I do know at the dues, you weren't on the floor making tips your first shift. You had a handful of regular pay shifts at like bare bones, just to get your feet wet and do, you know what I mean? Like, and that's clearly what Mitch's first day would be in this instance. So afterwards, things kind of start to calm down a little bit. I think it was post dinner rush that there was that little conversation where they're talking, the guys and the girls are talking about, the game, and like the girls are just like, what is with you guys? Why, and that's where Naomi stands up and flashes them.
That's at the end of the shift, as the dinner rush is over, and they're just kind of all sitting around because the restaurant's empty, except for and I'll say this, when we get to that part, I do have something to say about that. But as they're just about to close, but there's other things I know that you probably want to cover first.
Well, I mean that's the main thing, really, is like after the dinner rush, it's all kind of winding down. People are doing their stuff. You see the cooks in that mad rush to get the kitchen cleaned up and everything, and you hear one of them say, "Nobody better come in," And you probably are going to second or similarly this, and I guess all of y'all probably can understand this, but it's like, I can fully understand it. I have worked in one of the restaurants I worked at. The kitchen closed, I think, 2 hours typically before last call. I think that's the case of both of the restaurants. When the kitchen's closed, the last thing in the world that they want is to cook something else. If they're trying to close up, the last thing you should ever do is order something that requires them
Or
to use.
walk in last minute.
Yes, and it's pretty bad for the. What's that?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think all of us have had that experience.
I have definitely had those nights. And one of the worst was, I don't remember if the kitchen was fully involved. No, they weren't, because this was way after the kitchen was closed. But it was it was that way with last call. One of the and one of the things they do get in this movie is the interpersonal relationships in a restaurant can be very complicated, very sticky, not always pleasant, but oftentimes people will get along just fine at the after party or at the bar. But, you know, it can be pretty rough at times. But there are very, very, very few times in my life that I straight up could not stand a coworker. And there was one who they stole tables. They badmouthed both servers and hosts to the customers in front of said servers and hosts. They would steal tips, and they were just terrible generally. And I was one of the people that lobbied for this person to get fired, and they were fired within a few weeks. And a few days after they were fired, they came in with their partner right before last call, roughly 10 minutes before last call, and ordered very complicated drinks. And the bartender was furious. And I was furious because it was 2 in the freaking morning and I was the server. And yeah, that I have been there. But of course, this person who comes in, what was it, 5 minutes to spare?
Actually, less than that for this one.
Yeah.
I think because they were counting it down to like 3 minutes or something.
Yeah. They cooks in the kitchen literally are staring at the clock.
Matter of fact, as they're getting the steaks, oops, on the floor. Oops.
Well, that was,
Now, see, at Chi-Chi's and at Big Boys, if you were fired, you weren't allowed to come back in that restaurant.
That's actually probably a good thing.
I think it depends on the circumstances of the firing, at least at the ones I've worked at. But I'm sure. I think
it was like a 30-day thing. You know, if you were fired, you couldn't come back in the restaurant for 30 days.
And I think this person actually, I believe, because it was so late at night, it would not have been the main manager. It would have been one of the other managers. And that might have been why they felt emboldened. I don't know all the particular, but anyway. So this guy comes in. It turns out to be Chet and his attractive girlfriend or whatever. And of course, Dean is the only server left on the floor, and he gets to deal with his old pal, Chet. And Chet is pleasant enough, but in a very condescending way.
Actually, did we even talk about the scene with his mother talking about Chet?
Briefly,
and getting his bachelor's degree in engineering. Now, and the amount that the guy is making, like $47,000 a year or something like that, that may not seem like much to us right now.
It seems like a raise to me.
But $47,000 a year in 2005.
That's good money.
Was good money.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's good money. I mean, I'm closing in on that, sort of. This is 20 years later.
I mean, I make a lot more than that, and I can tell you right now, that guy won 47,000 a year was probably living much better than I am on almost twice what he made.
Yeah.
That's not that's sad.
Yeah. And again, he's pleasant enough, but in a very condescending way. He's clearly looking down his nose at Dean, even though he's acting pleasant, happy to see him. And then we get a callback, like we said, we get a callback to this scene with the redneck earlier, because in that one, the guy stiffed Dean. Here he opens it up and it's $100 bill on, what was it, like a $30-some check, I think it was.
Yeah.
Which I got to say, that's a pretty good tip. And I love tips like, what's that?
That's a nice tip.
That's
Yeah.
That's almost, that was a roughly 200% tip or close to it. And I have very, 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 very rarely ever got that kind of percentage from a tip. Very rarely. And I don't think I ever got a single tip that was that big. So that was a great way to end the night. But Dean, of course, has a bug up his butt. And he marches right up to Chet, and he's like, I think you made a mistake. You gave me 100. And he's like, oh yeah, that's for you. You probably need it more than I do, which was a good callback to what Dean said to the redneck. But
that's probably one of the lowest blows that dude scored that time.
Like I said, that was a very condescending thing to say. I was like, oh my God, Now, granted, I will say that when I worked waiting tables, anytime someone flashed out 100, my stomach sank. Because without fail, the people who had $100 bill to pay their bill couldn't tip for shit. I don't know, Tammy, if you had the same reaction, but
it depends. See, we had the buffet thing on Saturdays and Sundays at Big Boys.
Yeah.
And when I first started there was a back section which had the bigger tables.
Yeah.
And all the waitresses would whine about working that, say they didn't make any tips, even the ones that have been there a while,
Right.
So they stuck me back there one day because I was like, well, I'll go back there if nobody else wants to, right? I'm newer,
Right.
I made more tips back there that day than any of them had ever made.
Wow. Very cool.
And then after that, I went and they're like, well, how do you do me? And it's like, I don't know what you guys do, but I walked out of there with $100 worth of tips that day.
Right. Well, what was it, that situation though of them? They had the big bills, or was it cumulative?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like a couple big parties, and they were paying with big bills.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious because, like I said, with me, the people who had money never wanted to spend it on tips. There were a few weird ones that I can't fully explain, but by far if I had to zero in on a demographic that was perfect for me, and unfortunately it was very niche. I didn't make a lot of money with this, but pound for pound, the best ones for me were young couples, where one of them recently worked as a waiter. And so they knew what was up. But I guess now they've moved on and they're making better money. So if I got that, I could count on a really good tip.
I think the people that tipped the best were the ones you didn't expect.
Well, some of those were too, yeah. But anyway, Chip was something that Dean didn't expect, but like I said, he was such an ass about it. But it was, again, any waiter is not going to be too fussed about ending the night with a $70 tip. but he does march straight back into the office and give Dan his answer, which is not what Dan expected at all. Because he not only turns the job down, he straight up quits, which we find out later at the party when he tells Monty about it. But
he didn't quit.
And
He
you
got
find
fired.
out later, and
well, yeah,
this might be a spoiler alert, but you find out later exactly what happens to him when he comes back in the second movie.
Which
yeah.
I haven't
The
watched
second
the
movie
second movie.
sucked. I
haven't
not.
watched the second movie. I don't plan on it, but
It's okay. I only saw it once and I was not impressed. But in that one, the manager is played by John Michael
I'm with
Higgins.
you on that too. I wasn't
Actually,
the second
yeah.
one.
the manager was stupid doing that, because if he quits, that's well and good. If he goes and fires him, then he ends up having to deal with paying him unemployment.
Yeah, that was a stupid move on his part. That's for sure. But yeah, so we go to the party, and everyone's going around doing their thing. Dean shows up and goes back into his room. Monty comes back with him. That's where he tells Monty basically what happened. And meanwhile, poor Mitch is all through the movie, he has been trying to make his presence known. Monty's constantly talking over him. No one else is really giving him much to say or do. And usually when he opens his mouth, he gets cut off. And finally at the party, he has someone actually talk to him. Bishop basically says, well, how are you? Or something like that. Like, he opens the door, and Mitch, at first he pauses. He's like, oh, you want me to talk? So he does. He opens his mouth. He's getting ready. And Calvin comes in and walks right over him. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that was the moment that set him off. He goes over and tells the guy, shut the music off. He shuts it off. And he gets up and he just dresses down everybody. He's just basically, everybody here, you all are, just gives them this complete rundown. And as he's on his way out the door, he turns and points at Floyd, and he's like, you are the worst one here. And just completely it calls him the Antichrist, if I remember correctly, which, considering,
he's
Dave's an asshole. That's
I was like, what?
Yeah, he's like, what do I do? and then, while he's doing that, Mitch assumes the position, and they all look back, and they're all like, oh, he got them, big time. He got them. And then he storms out the door.
I quit.
What's that?
He's like, he told me, I quit. I'm done.
Yeah. And Monty goes after him, and he's like, basically, that was awesome. You are a guy. Monty is all of a sudden ready to be Mitch's best pal. And in fact, later on, he tells Dean, you've been replaced. But, yeah, so that's basically that. They all have a good party. The credits start. And then we see Dan coming to the door with a six-pack. We did have this scene with Monty and Natasha where she's ready to go. And he's like, you know what? It's only a week. Let's wait. And the implication at the end of the movie is that she's actually going to give him a shot, and like I said, that minor bit of growth on his part of, okay, why do I need to get her in bed before she's legal? He finally realizes that maybe he doesn't need to. So tiny bit of growth on his part. So, but then she tells him what she did. We see Dan show up to a door, 6-pack under his arm, wearing a shenanigans shirt, which is how lame is that? And he opens the door, and right about the time that Monty's like, I can't believe you did that. And he opens the door, and it's the redneck. And he's like, dude, man, I hope you're here with my Sundays. And Dan's like, is Natasha here? And the guy's like, who? Natasha. It's like, and then the guy just shuts the door in his face, basically. And right about the same time, they cut back to where they were with Monty basically telling Natasha, oh, that was, you're evil, or something like that. And of course, Radimus is knocking on the door. They did a weird little edit where that you thought that, that Radimus was on the other side of the door with the beer, his own beer. But that's playing over the end credits. And then we get a couple other things playing over the credits. And one that is kind of horrifying in a lot of ways is we get a full-on Nick and T-Dog music video where they are rapping one of the arguably worst, highly offensive rap, but it's a full-on music video, and then it cuts to them passed out in the walk-in again.
That's their second daydream that they had.
Yes,
with the first one being the manager's trying to put out a fire, and they just like screw you, and they take gasoline.
Exactly. I think that was T-Dog's daydream, but this one's probably Nick's. But it's like they've been doing what is it? Whippets, I guess.
Yeah, whippets.
Yeah, they've been doing whippets and passing out in the walk-in. So that pretty much the end of it. So that's basically the plot of Waiting. Did anyone have any particular plot-wise things to cover before we? I can't believe I skipped during the dinner rush. That's where we get our lovely scene with the poor kid who gets tormented.
And the old man, of course, at the same time.
And the old man. So we get this old man who thinks he's going senile, and Monty's his waiter, and Monty actually really gets into the conversation they're having, and he walks away from it going, that old guy is the best customer ever. And so we had some interesting interactions there. But yeah, that poor kid, I felt for that kid.
Did you mention it and I missed it about when the girls turn the tables on the game? Yeah, we did. Okay.
She actually used a wig for that scene to
well, I think she had a double that was using one, but it was like they wanted to make it as nasty as possible.
Yeah, that was nasty.
Apparently, they asked all the waitresses, because Amy, Serena, and Naomi are all in that scene, and the actresses were all approached. I think Anna Faris first, and then I think Caitlin Doubleday, and then I think Alana Ubach, and they were like, would you be okay with your character doing this? And Anna and Caitlin were like, no, but Alana's like, you're going to use a double, but yeah, I'm fine with it. and by the way, let's make it really nasty. So that's what they did there. And actually, I think that was as close as we got to actual nudity in the film, because for the most part,
we had a few. Depends on which version you watch. There's an unrated version where you get a lot of frontal male nudity.
I guess I watched the theatrical cut, because the one I have, it said unrated, but I didn't bother checking to see which one I was watching. So I guess I saw the theatrical cut. Yeah, I can imagine the unrated one was probably worse. Probably
I did
just
have one more thing to say about the closing time stuff, because I know we
Yeah.
ran through it as quick as we could. I
yeah,
would say that if you ever go to just like any of these places, but I will say, I know fast food definitely, don't go to fast food right before it closes.
yeah,
A lot of the times it takes a good half hour to get everything wiped down and done, and they
yeah,
don't want to pay you after close.
yeah,
So, which, if you fought for it, you could, but they wanted you to just take it if you could and work for free after close.
yeah.
The ways people abuse you. So, like for instance, when we do it, we would take about a half a pound of roast beef, and that was what we would cut so that we could just have that as a pile in case somebody comes in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one night we had an entire busload of people from Northern Ireland come in
Oh,
5 minutes to close.
oh,
So we literally had to take everything, drag everything out, and they threw me up at the register, and literally there was a 5 minute delay where the guy was speaking and I was able to actually figure out what he said to me, because they speak very fast and the accent is very thick, and it took me a minute to say, oh, that's what you said.
ah,
Literally my mind was on a delay. But
ah,
everybody was so PO'd because we didn't leave until we closed at 10. We didn't leave until close to 11 that night. And of course, we didn't get paid for that extra hour,
oh, that sucks.
which is illegal. But we were
Yeah.
mostly young and didn't understand that at the time.
That reminds me, though, one of the other things that happens during the dinner rush is Amy gets a table of Scandinavians who are speaking. I'm not sure if it was Norwegian or Swedish or what, but they were definitely speaking Scandinavian.
They did this as a trick. They were speaking German, but in an
it's a
Austrian
German
accent.
Sorry, okay.
So they were trying to confuse you by actually speaking an Austrian accent, but speaking German. And they did that on purpose.
I was confused. But anyway, Amy was very confused because they didn't speak any English to her and acted like they didn't speak any English. And then as she finally leaves them, brings their check and turns around and walks away, one of them leans over and is like, what do you think she would think if she knew we understood English perfectly?
And tipping, which is a standing, and tipping, which was the main issue, because because Europeans don't tip.
Yeah.
And that's also something that's a culture issue for Americans, because they love seeing Americans, because we don't realize that sometimes. That equity is already in there, and they actually get fair wages for their waiters and stuff.
Yeah. Not like here. Oh my God.
But it also can work the other way around, where they will tip sometimes and play like that Ireland group. All of them tipped because they thought that they had to tip. This is before everybody had to. Everybody was given the thought of, well, tip at every place nowadays. So that was so it can work the other way around too, because they don't understand.
Right. Now, of course, it's a well, I definitely have thoughts about the whole way that works, which one of the biggest issues, I think, with the way that wait staff get compensated, or even bartenders to a degree, is it's not as widely known as it should be. I mean, maybe partly this is on me. I don't know, but I was not aware that $2.13 an hour was the base wage for waiters until I was a waiter. I was not aware of this. And it's something that should be pretty well made known if we're going to have that system. But anyway, like I said, that could be a whole soapbox too. But anyway, any other thoughts on the plot before we go into favorites?
Nope, I was just going to say something on what you just said. As far as I know, waitresses still make only this much per hour, and they count on their tips to make the rest of it.
Yep.
As far as I know, it's still that way. Now, when I bartended, I made full wage because of the bar I worked at.
And that depends on the restaurant too. Like, Actually, I worked at a restaurant. Well, the one where I was every position, when there was a point in time where I briefly left, and when I came back, I said straight up, I want to raise and I want to be a bartender. And I actually was paid more to wait tables than I was as a bartender. And there's a whole story there, and I'm not going to go into all of it on the air. But the point being that even bartenders often get paid much less than full wage. They're expected to make up the difference, and that you probably heard this where you worked. I had the expectation that if I wasn't making minimum wage, it was on me. You know, that's.
Well, when I bartended, I made full wage, but that was because it wasn't a restaurant type setting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so, when I was a service bartender at the country club, I was paid a proper wage for that. Yes, of course. If I was waiting on tips for that, I've been screwed because I didn't have enough customers.
That's probably why they gave you the full wage.
Well, actually, there, our manager, like not my manager, but his boss, didn't want us taking tips, and that meant that went for me. That for my manager, that went for the servers. He didn't want us taking tips. We worked 3 weddings while I was there, and we hid the tip jar because he didn't want us to see that. Didn't want us to do that. But everyone knew that we were taking tips. We just hid the tip.
when I worked at Big Boys, my paycheck could be it would be itemized out because I got full wage when I hostess, and I got full wage if I ran carry out. But then if I went waitress, then I got the waitress wage.
Yeah.
So, and you would see that on my check.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, like when I was a cook or a host, I would get paid a certain wage. And after close, we would get paid full wage after close. Yeah. That was one of the reasons why they wanted us to get it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I could have just done like my play, like where I was at, and just not paid you at all after close.
Yeah, luckily I didn't. Well, no, my 4th food service job, the last one I had, the one that was complete BS, I had a 3-hour employee meeting that everyone was required to be at, and no one got paid for. That was ridiculous.
That's a rights violation too.
Yeah, it was complete. That place was a clown show. I didn't stay there long. But anyway, production. So, what are our thoughts? Like I said, this is filmed in a converted restaurant, so they did pretty good on the set, I think. And there are, of course, a handful of other sets involved. Not a lot, because most of it takes place at that restaurant. But I do find it kind of no, actually, never mind. I was going to say it's interesting that they're all wearing different outfits, but that's not unheard of. Depends on the restaurant you're at. But if you have like different seasonal designs, sometimes people will wear a hodgepodge. But they look like legit restaurant outfits.
Well, they all had the logo on. It just different color shirts.
Right.
But they all had the logo on.
Yeah.
So.
But what are y'all's thoughts overall on the production?
I thought it was decent. I agree with you that the setting of the restaurant was very, very realistic, and even the back area where the cooks and all that stuff.
Right.
I mean, especially if you've been in this situation, you know that looked real.
Right.
They probably got away with it pretty cheap, I would think, overall.
Right.
As far as the house party goes, it looked like a house. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I thought the production was pretty decent because everything would seem very realistic.
Right.
I have to agree myself. The restaurant was believable. The situations were, although a little far-fetched, were believable.
Most of them, yes.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything as extreme. At least in fast food restaurants, I didn't wait tables. Myself. Although technically, when I was working at George Webb's, I kind of waited tables and kind of didn't. But because the ladies would take forever cooking the food and not taking care of the tables that needed to be cleaned. So while I was cleaning the place, I would clear the tables off. So
Yeah.
You're basically doing the busboy work.
I totally blanked on I had another food service job, and that was when I worked in the movie theater. But that was basically drinks and desserts, but still. Actually, that was my title was drink, desserts, and popcorn. Oh man, being someone in my 30s at the time and dealing almost entirely with late teens to 20 something first or second job they've ever had. It was, but anyway, yeah. So apparently, this movie had a budget of around $3 million. So kind of a low budget movie, but it did pretty good with what it had. I'm sure the certain members of the cast were probably where a lot of the budget went.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Ryan Reynolds, Anna Faris, and Justin Long weren't exactly cheap. And then maybe a couple of the others too. What are y'all's thoughts on the music overall?
It was a reflection of its time.
Yeah, that's about it.
It was. I mean, I liked it. Don't get me wrong, because that was the time where I was most in tune to what was out and what was up that late '90s to about mid 2000s era. That's when I was most in tune with what was coming out. So I was perfectly happy with the soundtrack. Some of it's a little bit older. Like, I mean, you had Here in the Bedroom, Outside Goldfinger on there. You had a lot of ska punk stuff on that one. It was pretty interesting. So it was down by me, but definitely reflecting of its time, though.
It was definitely reflective of its time, early 90s.
Yeah. So the composer is Adam Gorgoni. There was, some background music. I'm going to be honest, the music did not leave an extraordinary impression for me. I think it worked. It worked for the movie without calling attention to itself.
I think the rap made an impression on me.
The rap made an impression, but it was it was something.
It was an original song.
It actually turns out that the fat kid is an actual rapper.
Yeah.
Well,
they're not bad as rappers go. He was not bad.
Well, no, he went on to have a rap career after this.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe this didn't have that song as being up for the Academy Award for Best Original Song.
Yeah. Which actually it kind of does remind me a little bit of the was it I guess Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. You got that Because I Got High over the end credits, and that somewhat better song, but it's still kind of in that vein. This one's more like, to use a phrase that may not be PC nowadays. I don't know. You got a couple of Wiggers who are singing would-be gangster rap is kind of cringe. But this guy, he wasn't bad at it. It just sounded cringe, mostly from all the lyrics and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, but I could fully believe this guy is having these grandiose dreams while passed out from whippets and weed. It's like, uh, and also I admit I was thinking about Because I Got High because I was watching a video earlier today about Afro Man's recent court appearances, and oh, that was some crazy stuff. Like those. Anyway, what else do we? I guess that's most of it. I guess it's time for favorites, unless anyone has anything else they want to put out beforehand.
Nope.
No.
Okay. So, we'll go ahead and say favorite character, of course, favorite scene and or line of dialogue. And let's say, well, we've done this one now. We've done Clerks. Or do I want to go that route? I don't know if I'll have enough options. Well, let's say, are there any other movies that you were like, okay, this, I'm sorry, my brain just completely crapped out on me. That might be a sign that it's time to wrap it up. Well, let's just go ahead and say, is there another movie that we did not put forward this month that you would think, yeah, if we were ever to revisit this is a movie that I'm a little embarrassed to say I love? We'll go with that. Make you happy there, Dave. We'll start with you, Dave.
Okay. Okay, I have two favorite scenes in here. The first is when the line cook describes the game, and ends with the goat. That part amuses me, and it will always stick out in my mind. The other part is when Ryan Reynolds goes to the blonde. I forget her name because I know she's in Scary Movie and all that jazz, but
Lana Ferris.
Yeah, Ferris.
Yeah.
He goes to her and says, "Wait a minute, wasn't I inside you?" And for some reason, the whole dialogue after that just makes me laugh just a little bit, because it's kind of like a back and forth of your dick is smaller, small. For some reason, just their back and forward was just kind of hilarious to me.
Where she just completely rakes him over the coals and eviscerates him in front of his trainee.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good.
And then, so that was my favorite line, to be fair and honest. As far as I hadn't really thought about another one, that, because there's not many that I'm embarrassed. Like, there are there aren't really that many chick flicks that I actually like.
Okay.
Like I hated Clueless.
Oh, I like Clueless.
Oh, I like Clueless. Yeah.
I hated that one. Trying to think of other chick flicks. See,
so
there was always a genre of movies that Valley Girl cheerleaders would only go and see.
Okay.
Like Oh my god! Like I broke a nail. Did you just see the new Barbie movie the other day? You know that.
Barbie was awesome.
Barbie.
See, I didn't like Barbie, but see, anything too girly is not. It turns me off. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so you like manly films.
I like more refined films.
Well, if that's the way you want to put it.
Like what?
More refined, independent films. Well, you guys know my jazz. My jam is normally a couple of killer clowns come to Earth and obliterate the humans.
Yeah.
You know, your average day drive-in movie is better than the chick flicks that are put out there. I mean, I mean, I wish the drive-in movie theater still existed because the point of the movie, at least with early day. Of course, I'm not in my early days of a relationship anymore, but you know, you could take a girl out to the theater, and you could neck the entire movie. You know, but gone are the days that you can neck anymore more during an entire movie, and then forget half of the movie. But I don't know.
Okay. I guess you'll elaborate more on that next week.
Yep. Maybe. Who knows?
Yep.
But
Okay.
I'm trying to think of an actual movie that I could probably put forward that I'm ashamed of. I really can't. My mind is a blank.
Okay.
Bunny.
That's like my third. Fourth favorite.
See, Dave. My reasoning for choosing this one absolutely applies to Bunny the Killer thing with you. I think everyone here would agree that you should be ashamed.
I'm not. Okay, I get the fact the film was a little rapey. But
a little.
You know what? It's okay. It's a lot rapey, but come on. It's no better than. There is a blaxploitation movie that I know where the dude went around killing people with his extendable penis.
I will say that if Bunny the Killer Fame was my favorite film, that would have probably gone onto this particular list very quickly.
It's not my favorite film. You guys know that, but it's on the list. Let's just put it that way.
I have it on a different list.
I have it on a totally different list too.
As far as releases go, it is by far par.
So, how about you, Tammy?
My favorite characters, I actually like the one waitress that just screamed at everybody. I got a kick out of her.
They did what?
Screamed at everyone.
Okay. Naomi? Yeah.
Yeah, she just made me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
She was constantly losing and just screaming at the top of her lungs, like, you know.
Right.
Favorite scene? Oh boy. There was quite a few of them that made me laugh. So, I guess when they did the really, really naughty on the for the beach, meow.
Oh, you're talking about when the one chick showed her bush?
No, when they totally screwed up that lady's
meal
with the beach.
When they put it all together.
Yes.
Yeah, the garlic salt and so forth.
The whole recipe.
Yes.
Uh,
And if I've got to say a movie that is kind of weird that I kind of liked it, and I don't like to admit that I kind of liked it, it would have to be, and you guys are going to probably freak out on me, Human Centipede.
Well,
I have
definitely.
seen this. I have no desire to. Huh. Good times.
I don't know why, but
Okay. If you're going to say Human Centipede, I'm going to put forward Human Centipede 2.
But are you really ashamed that you like that one?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not ashamed, but I ought to be.
I ought to be.
See,
too.
that's what the next one that I put forward should be.
So-
I'm not ashamed, but I ought to be.
Speaking of people ought to be ashamed, I was just looking through again the cast list, and again, Naomi is played by Alana Ubach. Apparently, in Bombshell, she is the one who plays Judge Janine Pirro. I gotta say that was good casting. But anyway, so we did you guys. How about you, Brandon?
So Monty is my favorite character.
Okay.
He is just the highlight of the movie for me. As far as favorite scene, the scene where Mitch finally gets to speak, that whole scene was great. And the thing that really put it home was just him pointing like, and you're the worst of all, which is weird because the guy pointed gave him no reason whatsoever for that. It's just out of nowhere. I just thought that was hilarious. Though if you're looking for a favorite quote, that quote about, never mess with the people who handle your food. Now that to me is the thing that I think that's the best quote from that. One of the best quotes from the movie, because it is something that most people should think about.
Yes.
As far as films, so like I said, one of the ones I mentioned that if we hadn't covered it, that is my guilty pleasure film, one that I will watch on a regular, and I shouldn't think that this is one of my favorites, is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, because it is my favorite Kevin Smith film. And it is shameful to kind of admit that, because I should be liking more artistically inclined Kevin Smith films. So that's how it is. Now, there were a few back in the older days where I would have considered it, but I haven't watched them in so long. I don't know if I'd even consider myself liking them anymore, because when you haven't watched something in 20 years, it tends to, you may have a different opinion of it. Like, Dude, Where's My Car? I used to love that film, and I would definitely consider that a guilty pleasure movie if I was enjoying it now as much as I did. So there's some in there. I mean, and one day we might cover it. I wouldn't cover it under this because I'd need to watch it again before I would say that I could consider it a guilty pleasure.
Which one?
Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I haven't seen that in too long either. That was a good one.
I used to love it, but I didn't. But it was college when, like, Roanoke College. It was still back at my bachelor's that I was.
That was
into
still
that
when they were running off of the Ashton Kutcher vibes from that 70s show.
Well,
Dazed
him,
and Confused.
him and Sean William Scott were both pretty big for a hot minute there. So that was like, yeah.
But yeah, those are two. Like I say, if I had to do this assignment again, I probably would put forward Dude, Where's My Car? Unless it's been a couple of years. And if it's been a couple of years, I'd put Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, because that is my true guilty pleasure film. Much like Jacob, I really didn't have one that fit, that really fit the assignment. So I had to kind of guess at it, much like he did.
Right.
Do you remember Dazed and Confused?
I had no shame in watching that. And,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Actually, I just saw today that there's a new Richard Linklater film out with Ethan Hawke and some other folks. I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing, but no,
I guess I guess I could say K-Pax because
Yeah.
I still like the film and it stars Kevin Spacey. So theoretically, I should be hating the film because it stars Kevin Spacey, but it's
And
still
that,
a well-written film.
that's a whole subclass of ones that I briefly considered. But I'm like, I don't really want to highlight a movie because of who's in it. You know what I
Or
mean?
any film that was directed by, gosh, what's his name?
Oh, your favorite, American Beauty.
Well, that one I can say is not a guilty pleasure because there is no pleasure at all in that movie for me. Maybe Jacob.
I need to see it again, but I used to love the movie. I will admit that.
But yeah, that's it's the movie I hate the most and have seen the most. But yeah, I think guilty pleasure is definitely a hard one these days because I don't really feel guilty about liking most films these days.
Yeah. and again, like you said, K-Pax would be one of several Kevin Spacey movies that like I would feel very differently about it now than I used to. And I don't know what my take on it would be.
But again, I guess that's a different type of shame, though, really.
It is.
Like when you have a director like The Pianist, it's a great film, and I understand it, Rosemary's Baby, but the director is a child rapist.
Or like I'm looking right now at Fire Down Below. I mean, the main reason I feel any guilt on that one is that it's freaking Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole different thing there. But anyway.
But in any case, separating art from artist, that could be a genre all of in itself of us doing it. It's like films where you have to separate the art from the artist. You could do that pretty easily.
Well, then again, we'd still have to. But anyway, so I just found the description. They've got IMDb has the whole exchange listed here in the quotes section. So the one part is where Mitch is just like, you know what? Fuck this. You all suck. I quit. Goes to, oh, and yeah, there's one more thing. You are the biggest piece of shit in this entire restaurant, and I hope you burn in hell. Me? What did I do to you? And I will admit, Dan Cook, from what I understand, is a fairly problematic person, but he's not a big part of this movie, so it's not like, and it is deeply satisfying to hear him get cussed out like that specifically. So I got to agree, that was a great moment. For me, favorite character probably is Monty. He is very charming and very funny. And most of the other characters don't quite rise to that level. I like several of them. Even though he's a bit of a creep, I kind of like Radimus, actually. But, Serena, Dean, Natasha, they each have their points. But but I think, and Mitch, I kind of feel for Mitch. But I'll go with Monty for favorite character. Favorite moments, again, the parts that always stuck with me were that one line, a little floor spice makes everything nice. And I did like that we almost had to go to the 10-second rule, and then, of course, the, oh, hell, it's our anniversary. Get the lady a Pepsi, just, oh, my God. I guess those are I guess those are going to be the favorite moments. Oh, and the part at the very end when Dan shows up at Redneck's door because Natasha pulled one over on him. That I know that was a mean trick she pulled, but I did find it funny. So yeah, there's a few good moments here. And I kind of, I think one of the reasons I hesitated on my extra question was I kind of actually gave this away at the beginning of the thing. For many years, I heard that Street Fighter was a horrible movie, that everyone involved should be ashamed of it. The critics hated it, audiences originally hated it. I am a big fan of the Street Fighter games, and specifically Super Street Fighter 2 was like my jam. I played the crap out of that game. I particularly love playing Chun-Li. And I just never saw the movie, in part because of the horror stories that I'd heard about it. But in the last several years, more and more and more, I've started hearing how Raul Julia gave it his all. He knew it was his last performance, and he put it all on the line. And he did. He was really enjoyable in that role. And Ming-Na Wen is a favorite of mine, and I didn't get to see her at the recent con, but partly because she was coming to Richmond, I was like, I need to finally watch this movie, see Chun-Li in one of her early roles. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I guess it would be a quote unquote guilty pleasure. It would be a movie that many people would say I should be ashamed to enjoy, but I enjoyed it. And then Crime Wave, Bruce Campbell described Crime Wave as the movie wasn't released so much as it escaped. And I'm like, that is a great way to describe a movie. It's a movie where Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, and the Coens all collaborated and all had their efforts completely pissed on by the studio, and ended up with a weird live-action wannabe Looney Tunes Frankenstein that none of them want to acknowledge. They've all disowned. I finally got around to watching it, and I'm like, this movie is a hot mess. And I can see why they're ashamed. But it's a fun movie nonetheless. So,
Mm-hmm.
So those would both be ones that I could see doing if we had to do this category again. But as I said before, a lot of the movies that quote unquote I should be ashamed of, I literally haven't seen for 10 or 20 years. And I have no idea if I still enjoy them. Dude, Where's My Car is a good example. I have no idea if I'd still enjoy that movie, but I liked it when I saw it. So, But anyway, I guess that does it for me. I hand it back to you, Dave, unless anyone has any final thoughts.
No, I don't think so.
So I will just say as one last thing, I will reiterate that Brandon's point that probably the truest line in the movie is, don't fuck with the people that handle your food. Yes. Good advice.
I'll second that and dedicate that to all you people out there who listen to us. But hopefully you ladies and gentlemen out there have enjoyed our discussion on this film. If you have not seen the film, go out and see it. And then come back and see if you can comment on our commentary. But in any case, I do believe and I do declare we do have another movie lined up in the future for this particular theme.
What?
And I do believe it's my choice that is being put forward. And that would be Legally Blonde. So, Brandon, did you have anything that you wanted to put forward from your channel before we headed out here?
Well, we got 2 reviews coming up this week for what was it? The Exotic Zoo of Terror by Blaze Tudor, and the Myths and Mutants Volume 2 from Legends Hunter Studio. Legends Hunter Film, sorry. And those are going to be, that's a little bit unusual. I've been kind of not doing as much because of I'm trying to reorganize my entire collection, and that tends to make it very difficult to do anything.
Have you gotten through everything yet?
Oh, heck no. I am seeing the end of the tunnel. I think that if I worked at it steadily, I could definitely get it.
Well, as long as you don't add anything anytime soon. But in any case, hopefully, like I said, you enjoy our discussion, and everyone say good night.
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Inside movies galore, just makes you just want more. We've had all in the world of media to explore. Horror, anime, or Curious George. Our love of new things was our reward. It is the best night of our week.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.